Welcome back to another Dr. Supercoach podcast powered by Code Sports. You're on with Pig and Pistol. How are you going this weekend, Pistol?
Wow, that was a week to remember. Everything that could have happened in Supercoach kind of all happened in one single week, which means this is going to be a really long podcast. And I thought last week's was long, but there's even more questions somehow this week than last week. So, it's kind of exciting because it just means there's a lot of opportunity when there's so much carnage.
Part of me is wondering if I can, if Cheezo has the ability to beep out a swear word, because what the was that? That was a horrible week. It started poorly for a few of us with those Rosé owners, and then it just kept getting worse and worse. So yeah, that was something. I actually didn't watch the last few games because I was just getting so annoyed at it. So I ended up doing some housework and listening to the radio on SEN, so I didn't actually have to have a visual on my players. Yeah, so my weekend started off with the Rosie injury. He got subbed out. Then the next game, Zach Williams injury, he got subbed out. The next game, Tom Green injury, he got subbed out, all on my field. So I thought this is awful. This is not happening. So yeah, I didn't watch much more. I did listen to a lot, still followed it a bit. I actually had a really strong Sunday, came home, especially with some Bulldogs players. I traded in Dylan Moore, which went really well.
Huge.
I captained Tim English, traded in Sarong. So I actually had a really good finish, a good Sunday. Ended with 21.77, which was obviously a bit above par because it climbed me 3,000 ranks. So I'm now in the top 10K. Actually, all four podcasters are in the top 10K for the first time this year, so that's a win.
Yep.
I'm at about 9K. Tell me about your weekend. You went a little bit better?
Yeah, a little. Just 2-2-2-1. So up 4K, so into the 7,000 mark, which is pretty exciting given my incredibly slow start. What was I, like 37K 4 weeks in, something like that. So maybe it was 5 weeks in. But yeah, I still got hit with some of the carnage. I just, Tom Green, traded him in. Actually, funny story, I went early with my brother-in-law when gates opened to try and get to get a seat at the SCG so that I could watch Tom Green. And then, yeah, obviously we got in and I could only watch him for like 3 minutes. And I was like, oh, well, this is a bit of a day ruiner.
Worth the price of admission.
Some would say, I guess. But I managed to avoid some of the carnage you spoke about earlier. So I was hoping for like a big Sunday. And I partially got it. But having Libba this season, the combo of Dawson, Libba as your two 600K players has just been so awful to own. I mean, Libba just missing the games, and I thought it was going to be subbed out on 0 because of that head knock he got almost immediately when the game started. And then he didn't
look great.
No, he looked terrible. I'm like, I don't know how he's passed this concussion test or whatever. And I'm like, I was already like, okay, I'm trading him because he's going to miss weeks now. And then he got suspended anyway for a week, which is confirmed. Mm-hmm. And he got another head knock at the very end of the game that split his head open and he was bleeding everywhere. And I'm like, this is poor Libba, firstly. Like, that is a rough day at the office, going into work and getting your head hit twice and, he's all over the place. And now they said he's going to be out indefinitely with concussion. So I'm forced to trade him, but that really was a disaster starting selection.
Yeah. Yeah, that I've got LDU, but I don't have the two of them at least. Like it sounds like you got Dawson and Libba, so you got two.
Lots of fun.
When we talked about last week, you and I on our tandem bike out at 12K, trying to catch Cheezo and JB on their tandem bike. I felt like I said, my first 3 games of the round, I think I had about 3 tyres blown on the back of our tandem bike. So managed to package them up and finish all right Sunday. Cheezo's now at 2.3 thousand, so he's actually leading everyone now. JB copped quite a few bullets this week, so he's slipped back a little bit. But
he got all of them. He got 5 from field. He got literally hit left, right, and centre the whole weekend with all of carnage.
Absolutely copped it. So you're about even with him now.
Yeah, he's 7 points ahead of me.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so I'm just trying to hold on to the back of this tandem bike and ride your coattails because you're hot at the moment. So I'm gonna let you kind of pedal the bike, get us in the top 5K pretty soon. But I was actually listening to a few songs today, and I was just listening to 50 Cent as I often do. And one of 50 Cent's lyrics was, "Sunny days wouldn't be special if it wasn't for the rain. Joy wouldn't feel so good if it wasn't for the pain." And that sums up our SuperCoach round this round. Like, you can't have the really highs of SuperCoach without these horrible, crappy rounds. So thank you for your words, 50 Cent. I'm hoping now that we get some joy because we've just had the pain.
Yeah.
So moving forwards, looking onwards and upwards.
Absolutely. And to focus on some positives for a moment, I'm just going to jump into the Cancer Council. We got some very kind, generous donations, mostly on the back of Tom Green. So Butler says, had a slack bet that Tom Green would score more than 106. So that is quite unfortunate given his injury at the very beginning of the game. And Finn said, I bet that Tom Green unders with Butler, but poor circumstance to be right in. So I've donated anyway. Hopefully an anti-pod rank rise this week from the SuperCoach God. Sorry to all who copped his score. So very generous of both people on the back of the bet to donate. The only winner was the Cancer Council. So thanks, Finn and Butler, for that one. Yeah. It's pretty unlucky to be doing this Cancer Council bet on a player who gets injured immediately. As underscore DIC says, when Gorn was on 30 at halftime, I promised Slack I'd donate $1 for every point Gorn scored over 100. I'd like to think that message got to Gorn down in the rooms and he rallied, and now I owe the Cancer Council $11. So thank you very much for that one. As I saw that at the time and I was like, oh, it's pretty, it's not going to happen. And, Gorn, to his credit, rallied and salvaged a good captain score for those who managed to flick the C on him. CJ, donation for feeling partially responsible for telling my housemate to trade Livingston to Sweet. Then forgot to take the C off from the previous week's loop and captain's Sweet and had Grundy stuck on the bench. No. Double whammy.
That's so bad.
It's a disaster, but thank you for your donation, CJ. And I will say, instead of feeling partially responsible, you should feel entirely, wholly responsible.
Yeah.
For that one. That one's rough. Anonymous has donated for Green, Whitfield, Fife, Powell, Cheezo, Libba, Petrarca, all in the same round. Is that JB?
Yeah. JB wouldn't have Whitfield.
No, he wouldn't have Whitfield. But that is a disaster round. Apologies, Anonymous. Would not have been a fun weekend to get through. And I think that takes us all through the Cancer Council and no patron sign-ups, Pig, so it's all yours.
All right. Well, let's get into some content. And there's a lot to talk about because there's going to be so many potential guys to trade out with injuries or people not hitting their break-evens or whatever it might be. Maybe we'll start by talking about some trade-out kind of rookie-level players.
Yep.
So we went through a few last week, and if you've still got those guys, which were kind of like the common rookies, you can easily move them on. I'll add a few more. Like I think Roberts could go. He's that big spike score's gone out of his rolling average. He's going to have a pretty high break-even now, and he's worth a lot of money. So he's definitely someone you could cash out.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yep. Closey's still got an achievable break even, but also he could go. He's not a guarantee to hit it.
He plays North Melbourne though, so if you can hold, I definitely would see if he can reset his break even against North.
Yeah, the only thing with it, they've got 2 games in a row up in Darwin now, so like does a sloppy, slippery game affect a winger? We'll find out. I think he's good enough anyway against North.
It's a good call.
Comden, I think he can go. I was really hopeful for Comden when we brought him in. Like I watched that first game, he just looked incredible. He's been a great talent and they've really wanted him to get healthy for a few years, but he's just failing now. I really hoped he would spike against St Kilda and reset his break even, which is why I held. But yeah, I'm getting rid of him now before he drops.
Yeah, and he looks a bit, he always gets those niggles and he just gets injured mid-game very often and then they don't know what to do with him, or it's one of those those battlers, which is not great for Supercoach when there's a sub involved.
No, not at all. Zach Williams, he can absolutely go. You also, like, if you've got other bullets, you could hold Zach Williams just because he's going to be injured and not playing and losing money.
Yep.
But he does have a bit of cash on his head, so he's probably going to be a ticket for you to get up. I think we can move on Massimo as well. Like, he's played 2 or 3 games, a few games in a row now, where he's sat out like 15, 20 minutes in the last quarter. I don't really know what that's about, but it's hurting him. And now they've got a few of their kind of winger halfback types that are back. I don't fully know where he fits in the team, so I think Massimo can pretty comfortably go.
Yeah, I'm not sure what role he's going to have. So it's not a case of he's listed as a defender and he plays St Kilda. It's not really guaranteed a good score because we don't know what position he's actually going to play when he takes to the field, and that might even be sub.
Yeah. Like he's not an imperative trade out. Like, I'd get rid of probably Roberts and Comden, etc. before him, but yeah, it's not looking great. Sam Darcy you could get rid of, but also he does have an achievable break even and he's playing Richmond, so there could be a little spike there.
Yep.
I'd probably incline to hold Sam, especially because he's should be okay scoring in a forward line, which needs scoring in our Supercoach teams.
And his role is quite good. I mean, they dropped Lob, so it meant that, he had 19% CBAs, which is better than 0. So I believe you would know better than I off the top of my head, but I believe Richmond Rucks give up some points this season, so maybe he'll be all right
this season. Yeah.
So fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're kind of, I guess, the rookies. If there's any other rookies you're still holding on to that you could have flicked a week or 2 ago, you can still flick them. We can now. I reckon we should talk about a few premiums that people are thinking about trading out. Some of them injury-related. Actually, no, probably all of them. A couple role-related, I guess. But first one, I'll say Tom Green. Giants have actually said that he's a test for this week and could play, despite having a rolled ankle. Would you be inclined to hold Tom if he's back and healthy?
Yeah, I think it's a case of don't buy, don't sell.
Yeah.
Ankles probably limit his scoring a little, which is kind of crappy, but we don't really have a choice if you traded him in. He's already dropped some cash, and the run forward is not too bad. Essendon, Bulldogs, Geelong, I guess Hawthorn after the bye. It's probably worthwhile holding through that. And if you avoided him, I wouldn't be getting him before his bye either. Getting Hawthorn after the bye, and you're probably getting him for like 480 or 490k. It's an absolute goldmine for people to save a further 100k on someone we already thought was cheap last week.
Yeah, I'm very jealous of that. But yeah, I agree. So if he's out this week, what are your thoughts?
I'd be inclined to hold it. I think if it's out, it's probably a 1 weeker. So I'll just upgrade around him. Keep the upgrade cadence going.
Yeah, I think that's it. Would you say the same for Connor Rozee, or would you look to flick him? He's confirmed out this week. Kind of made his hammy worse by playing on it, it sounds like. Or did they say the other hammy? Either way, he's definitely out this week. Haven't heard about whether he'll be out the following week or not. Yeah,
so it's interesting. They said he was cleared again, but, when the fatigue set in, it became, I think it was like the tendon was catching or something like that. It seemed to like flare up when he was tired, so he couldn't play through the whole game. So they're giving him the week off. I don't know if that means it's 1 week off or 2 weeks off. I'm interested to hear what you do with this, because I do think it depends on your trade situation, cash situation, how many boosts you have. But realistically, at his price, which has now dropped considerably, I think I would be just upgrading around him, like keep my upgrade cadence going and just, pop him on the bench, pops, Libba on the bench for 2 weeks, and now I'm going to have to trade him, but Libba on the bench for 2 weeks, Stewart on the bench for a week, and you upgrade around those guys so that you're ahead of the game when they come back. And Rosie's got the good buy as well, so you're not really doing yourself any, I guess, disservice this year. And with the amount of cheap premiums, maybe you avoided Tom Green. Maybe you can get Oliver, and you can kind of use Rosie in that M8, M9 sort of situation. And I think that might be the go if you find yourself in a situation where you can make that work. But you have him, so what are you going to do with him, Pig?
This one really, really annoyed me because I call a bit of BS on like he got tired and then it got worse and then he did a little twinge. I was actually watching this closely and I feel like nearly from the first quarter he was not looking good. Like he wasn't explosive, he was avoiding contests. Kind of like he came into the game still with that niggle. So I actually think it was pretty stupid of them to play him and for him to put his hand up and play. So that was one of the reasons I got really annoyed to start the weekend. Moving forward, I'm inclined to trade Connor Rozee because I don't think he's a top 8 midfielder anyway. Tom Green, I'm really happy to hold because I'm pretty confident when he comes back, he's one of the best scorers in the game. Connor Rozee, I don't really see that. Like I see at least 8 to 10 midfielders that are going to score more than him. And that's even if he comes back fully healthy and doesn't try and come back early. But I do agree with you in terms of keeping your upgrade cadence going. So if you don't have any boosts and if you kind of park Rozee on the bench and you can do a 1 up, 1 down upgrade around him, I do think that probably is the right move. As I guess annoying and emotionally invested and annoyed we all were watching that game. I still have 1 boost left. So I can do a 1 up, 1 down with my other 2 boosts and then use my other 2 trades and then use my third trade with my boost to the sideways Rozee, and I think that's what I'm going to do because and it mainly is because I don't think he's a top 8 mid. If he was Caleb Sarong in this situation, I would probably hold.
I mean, if he misses 1 week, he comes back and he plays Hawthorn into North Melbourne, which is a pretty soft run as well. I mean, maybe that works against him. Maybe they take it easy and rest him more during those games. It's really hard to tell how they're going to play it. But I do think overall we're probably a little bit too fixated on, top 6 or top 8. Realistically, as long as you're in your handful, in that next rung down, in that 8 to 15 range where they probably all go within 5 points of each other, keeping somebody with a good buy gains you those points back because you do better throughout the buys with it anyway. So I don't necessarily think you don't need all your players to be the best possible player in their position every line, as long as they're within those next tier and you're not losing. There's not like a massive fall off. I think you can get 1 or 2 of them and probably still be okay, especially if you have a solid M9 and you're able to loop. I do think when you have someone with a ceiling of Rozee, and especially if your other one's Oliver, things probably will work out fine.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree. I still think I'm trying to aim for who I think are going to be the top 8. And then if one of them is kind of 5 points disappointing, then they're kind of, so be it, then they're at a Rozee level. And I think we talked about it on different podcasts. I'm not really a big fan of having the 23 primos.
Yes, I like to speak about it.
I like to pay up and have all 22 like elite guys if I can on the field and not be trying to loop, because when you do a loop, you get it wrong just as much as you get it right. But usually in doing that, I'm able to have a trade or 2 left over everyone, and then I just trade an injured player out. So that's where I kind of try and end my season. I know last year there was guys coming kind of into like the last 4 rounds, say, with 0 trades left, but they had like a Himmelberg and a Keys loop or whatever it was. And they were just losing so many points because they were getting that wrong often, or they were both doing 70s at one point. Whereas I had 22 primos, Josh Dunkley gets injured. That sucked, but I still had a couple of trades left, so I just traded him and got Rory Laird back or something like that.
Yeah.
Every year's different. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that this year, get all 22 of the best, but it did work for me last year, so that's what I want to target. But you're kind of right that having 1 or 2 kind of just below the mark isn't that big of a deal. I just, I'm kind of viewing these 40 trades because we essentially got 4 extra trades from last year. I've probably played the same to this point. Like I haven't gone harder than I would have. I know you've kind of burnt your maximum trades every week.
Yes. I mean, I'm playing the same that I would have.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I've kind of played normal as well. But that, for me, I've still got quite a few trades up my sleeve. So I'm viewing these 4 extra trades as the ability to just sideways a premium that's injured for a week or two. When I normally wouldn't do that, I'd normally hold.
Yeah.
So that's just how I'm looking at the moment. At the moment, I'm planning to trade Rosie. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see what more information we'll get from them. But if you only had 2 trades, I would probably hold it because you want to keep the upgrade cadence going. And if you're sidewaysing Rosie, you're killing your cadence for this week.
It's just, I think that the difficulty becomes when, you're trying every player you want to get, because you're missing so many from the top line. Like every time you upgrade, you're trying to get like a 620 plus K guy. Just makes life really difficult because your cash goes quickly and then you get forced into taking potentially worse cash cows or, whatever it might be. And your cash gen dries up. But if you take someone that might be, the Tom Green price, 570, or now new Tom Green price, 540 or 500, you let some of those cash cows top out the extra week because you're not forced into trading them. So that generates more money. And sometimes you get lucky. Like I've clearly got lucky with Dale. And, I've traded him in at 420 a couple of weeks back, and now Libba's out indefinitely. And, Ed Richards plays full-time mid now, and Dale probably keeps on this amazing run. And then you've end up with a top 6 guy accidentally almost. It was plans for him to go up in price, but not to necessarily score this incredibly well. And you just find yourself with some keepers. Not that it's a guarantee, but Dale and Rankin at their lowest price, and I could have got Dylan Moore as well, which I considered, and I got McRae 2 weeks ago, which very well, was a 50-50 split with Moore at 460k or 450k. That your whole year when if you get one person trying to upgrade someone to a 620k guy, and you're like, well, I could hold on to rookies that are going to go up. I've still got Howes, as well as the Gold Coast guys and Wilson and Darcy, Harley Reid and all those guys. Managed to hold on to them, while also, potentially having gotten Rankin and Moore and Dale. It's, season defining, and I guess is a large reason as to why I'm currently moving up the ranks. Not that it's necessarily going to stay there, but I just think, those extra trades may have allowed us to take on some of those risks, and you don't always get it right, and you end up with a Jesse Hogan type situation. But I guess that's what I've been using my trades on, right? Yep. If those ones flop, to move them on quickly. And fortunately, so far, touch wood, seemingly have a couple right, which has saved me trades in the long run. Yeah,
well, I think that's a good kind of description of the different ways to use these new trades. So
many ways to play.
You're going for the cheaper Dale types and kind of riding them, and I'm still waiting for the topper liners to get to about 600k, but I'm kind of targeting them and then just using the extra trades to sideways them if they get injured potentially.
Yeah.
On that, Tom Liberatore.
Yeah, he's got to go. That second head knock, they've already said that he's out indefinitely. So however long that might be, it might be 1 week. It's probably not going to be 1 week. Very, very fortunately, his price hasn't tanked, which, it could have, and that would have been a disaster. So at 615k, you kind of have your pick of the lot. I am looking at just getting the guy. Look, if you're up there and you don't have Luke Ryan, that is definitely an option. You might be missing a midfielder like Sarong or Bontempelli, and they're definitely options. One guy who I'm terrified of not owning, and it has been very unpleasant watching his team this whole year, because I don't own him, is Zach Butters. With Rosie out last week, Zach Butters spiked to 90% CBAs. From his seasonal average of 70. And it terrifies me, him getting 20% more CBAs on top of him already averaging a ridiculous amount this season, 121. Coming into a draw that's Geelong, Hawthorn and North Melbourne. Despite his break-even of 148, I think he's a chance of making that this week. And two, this this guy has a ceiling of 200 points. There's not many players like Zach Butters. I still strongly believe he's one of the best players in the whole competition, like literally top 2 player.
Yeah.
So this is a good time for me to make the jump, I think.
So you just told me that you're not interested in paying up for the 600k guys, and you'll go for more the Bailey Dale types. But is that different if you're kind of sidewaysing a primo, you think?
Well, I've got someone that's at the 600k mark already, so I'm not having to cash out additional rookies to get there and kill them early. But it's also this isn't like a top 8 sort of midfielder. Zach Butters is the top 3 midfielder.
Mm-hmm.
He's averaging more than Bontempelli, and I think when it gets to the Luke Ryans, I guess Zach Merritt's kind of in that category at the moment where you kind of just have to find a way to get them into your side because they've got the potential to ruin your season because they're just averaging so much more than the next tier, which if you bring back what I said earlier about that, M8, if they're within the 5 or so points of that next tier, it's okay. But Zach Butters is well and truly ahead of the next tier of player. So I'm trying to get all those guys into my side because they're the ones that can really damage you at the end of the day.
Yeah. Would you recommend someone trade out Libba if they've only got 2 trades, so they've got no boost?
That's me.
But then they can't go up with the other one if it has to be like going down to like sidewaysing Libba to a premium, and then the other move is like down to a rookie.
Yeah, I think you can build cash for your next week, especially if you're interested in some of the rookies this week. I think the biggest issue, one, is the rookies coming through, which we'll talk about a bit later in the podcast. But also, you don't need to trade Libba because it's not falling in price. And if you have 2 guys that are going to rocket down in price, 2 cash cows, that you need to get rid of, you definitely can trade those guys first and do a 1 up, 1 down. When you have someone like Zach Williams or Libba, they're not going anywhere. So given they don't fall in price, you can just wait until you need to trade them, basically. And that's what I was going to do with Tom Green if he was also injured long term and I had both of them. I was just going to do because I can still do a 1 up from cash left over in the bank. And I was just going to hold on to Tom Green until the time of, which I could trade him if he was out for, an LTI.
All right. Elliot Yeo. I've just seen West Coast have said that it's probably a 2-week injury.
Yeah.
Would you trade or hold Elliot
Yeo is like, as soon as he gets injured once, it's gone. Like it's not a let's wait and see how he goes and he'll come back and he might average 120, which is possible, but also he doesn't string together more than clearly 7 games in a row without getting injured, which has been the case for like 4 years or 5 years. And I think everyone selected him where it was like, if there is any signs of injury, we have to trade him out. And now is a sign of injury, so now you trade him out. You say, thank my lucky stars, I made 160k, and he averaged 113 during that time. He was unbelievable for me this season. Now I'm only 20k away from Luke Ryan or 20k away from all these big primo mids, and thank you very much, Elliot Yeo. That was a fantastic pick.
Yeah, that was an incredible pick. So I think it was even last week on the pod we said, who would have thought starting Elliot Yeo and Nat Fyfe would win you SuperCoach? And then it's totally changed this week. So, but absolutely awesome pick, Yeo. Yeah, trade him. Even if he comes back, he's kind of paper mache body.
Yeah, and he can lose all the money he's made.
Yeah, absolutely. Nat Fyfe. I know that he's actually one of the highest traded out at the moment. People, I don't know if they're rage trading or if they didn't realise that it was just a rest. I think I'd be holding Nat Fyfe because like there's not many guys in the forward line that can average 90 when they play a full game.
Who are they trading Fyfe to?
I don't know. Darcy Jones maybe.
I'm clicking traded out for it's to Darcy Jones. Or to Oliver. I mean, I guess it's Oliver I can understand, but still going down to Darcy Jones to like free up cash. Fyfe is at this stage like a forward primo. I know he had a sub game, but he had that rest now. So now he's fine. Now he goes back to his 90 average from now on until the next sub game. And hopefully next time we find out a bit earlier, and there's cover involved in that. But I don't really think there's a reason to trade him unless he's actually injured. So he's probably going to score well now because he's been refreshed. So yeah, I don't see any real reason to trade Nat Fyfe. That one surprises me that so many people are trading him out.
Yeah, I agree. One that doesn't surprise me, or I think should be traded, Tom Power. I think a lot of us traded him last week just seeing the writing on the wall that he wasn't going to be a forward keeper. I know that there were some people that held because there were reports coming out before the game that he was guaranteed to go back in the midfield. And he did kind of go back and play a fair bit of midfield, but he's just, even playing midfield, I don't think he's a 90 averager and I don't think he's a keeper. So I think Tom Power can go. Do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I still think I would trade him because I agree it's seemingly with the role up and about, it's hard to predict that he's going to go 90 plus to be a keeper. It's hard to know what he's going to do on a week-by-week basis. This week he had 52% CBAs and he shared his mid-time almost exactly with Cheezo, who had 45% CBAs. And then there was the stock standard LDU getting 90%. Wardlaw gets his 75%. And Simpkin had 30%, which I think this is probably the split I would anticipate, at least for a couple of weeks, while they try out Cheezo as a CBA mid and get him some experience and exposure there. I don't think there's anyone coming in that's going to immediately take away Powell's CBAs further. So he probably hovers in this 50% range, but 50% range probably keeps him in the, around the 80 average mark, which just isn't premium level. So I think, it's a trade for me, but realistically, if you want to hold another week, you're probably sacrificing like 10K, maybe 15. So it's not the end of the world if you can't get rid of him this round.
Yeah, that's fair. And I guess he's maybe better than a rookie on field at times.
At times.
Not even that confident to say that.
No, that's fair. He was better this week. We can say that.
Yeah, it's better than most rookies this week. So I guess there are a lot of the popular trade outs. Anyone else we should consider? I might put Brody Grundy as a potential trade out, and not necessarily because he's going badly. Like, he actually had a really good score on the weekend, which we talked about on the podcast and predicted and said hold him.
Yep.
But now he only has one of his next 4 games. He only plays it once at the SCG in the next month. And we know like he's scoring over 130 at the SCG and like 90 elsewhere. So he's only got one game at the SCG. He has a bye in that 4 weeks as well. This week he flies to Perth and plays against Sean Darcy, who's the hardest matchup in the league for ruckman. So it could be a little ouchy Brody Grundy game. His break-even's over 100. It's more that for me that Tim English is about to rocket up in price. Like, he's still in the low 600s, Tim English. He just put up a 130. But now he has Nankervis and then Kieran Briggs in the next 2. Like, I could see him being in the high 600s pretty soon. So that's just a thought, something to consider. You might not be able to do it because there's so much other carnage going on. But I think we might have a couple of average Grundy scores in a row and a couple of great English ones, and the gap's about to get really big, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a decent time to cash out when he's already, 584K. So you've made some money, which everyone's probably pretty happy with. He scored 112. I mean, if you've held this long, you're probably a winner. My only thing is, if Darcy is ruled out, I know they said he could have probably played and it was just a tight calf, and he's up against Jackson, it might be worth holding for another fortnight for that 83 to fall out of his rolling average, and he probably can make you another 30K if he puts out 2 decent scores. So might be worth holding him to his buy and reassessing if Darcy is ruled out. But if Darcy is named and you've got an extra trade, I think, I agree, English is about to go on a tear. So that's the time this is the time I'd make the move.
Yeah, and on that, Luke Jackson is quite an easy, when he has to play solo ruck, he's really easy to score against. So that is a fair point, that if Darcy's out, you could hold. And it's not necessary that I even want people to get rid of Grundy, because I think he's quite serviceable. I just think that English is going to the moon very quickly.
Yeah, and after these 2 easy matchups, English has 5 games in a row at Marvel. So it's as a non-owner, I am terrified. I was almost laughing when Meek was on 90 at halftime or 92 at halftime.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't laughing when he only scored 15 points in the second half.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to get to 600K for me.
I think this is a little bit like those Gorn owners that didn't start Gorn and then he kind of creeps up to low 600s and then you blink and he's like nearly 700.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking English could do quite soon. Don't have to trade Grundy out, but he could be your ticket to English. So I guess now we've talked about who's trading out. We can chat about some guys to trade in and maybe we'll start with the rookies.
The only other one, sorry, before we get there, is some people were talking about ditching Dawson at 590K. What are your thoughts on the timing of when to trade Dawson if you are going to trade him?
Maybe it's just hold him till his buy. And then off the top of my head, actually, what buy does he have? He doesn't have the first
last one.
buy.
He's got the final buy.
Oh, that's perfect then. You can hold him till his buy and then trade him to someone coming back off their buy. I think that's the play. Like, it is frustrating. He'll have like a 25-point half and then a 70-point half. You just have to hope that those 2 25 halves don't happen in the same game.
Yep.
But no, I think it's a bit sidewaysy at the moment. Like, if you have a boost and you can still do a 1 up, 1 down, maybe you could, but he's still playing. Like, he's still a heartbeat. So I'd wait till his buy, especially having that last buy. I want to do the same with LDU. I want to trade LDU at his buy. But LDU has a first buy, which is so annoying. So I'll have to trade him to someone that hasn't even had their buy yet.
That is much worse. I mean, Dawson has 4 of his next 6 at Adelaide Oval.
Yeah.
And quite a nice run. Brisbane, Collingwood, West Coast, Hawthorn, Richmond, Swans buy. So hopefully he'll still be hovering around the 580, 590 mark at his buy. So when we eventually do sideways trade him, we can get in a real top line for the run home. Someone that we've potentially missed out on. Maybe even a Raoul after his poor score this week might start lowering his price.
Yeah, and during the buys we get more trades. Like, we can use 3 a week. So
yeah, don't have to tell me twice.
So we will be using 3 a week.
Yes,
so that's when you can still do a 1 up, 1 down, and then a sideways to someone that's come off their buy.
Yep, perfect. Love that. Alrighty, back to you.
All right, rookies. Darcy Jones. I feel like he's a great option. He's been really talked up by the GWS like for a year or two now. Really like lauded on their social media. They're making posts about him and his helmet all the time. I mean, I know that doesn't mean that much, but he's also just playing really well.
He is.
Like a couple of 70s in a row, scores in the 70s, doing like kicking goals. He kept his spot and still played really well with Toby Green back. I don't believe Brett Daniels played this one, did he? So that's probably...
No, he did.
Oh, he did. So they're all back.
Yeah, they were all back.
Oh,
Harvey Thomas, they made the sub.
All right. Well, let's... I don't think there's any reason not to do a Darcy Jones.
Yeah, Firstly, I think he's been really good. Both games he's impressed me. You know, watching him live, it was a tough conditions against the Swans at the SCG. He performed really well when the team got beat. So really like the look of him. I think he's far and away the best downgrade option for this week. So if you need one, Darcy Jones is your guy. The only con that I have with Darcy Jones, he's quite a small boy. Yes. And when I look through their subs have been Bedford, Daniels, Thomas.
Small boys.
And it feels like Jones is just like in the mix of people who should be rotated as a sub at some stage.
Yeah.
I don't know when that will be. So it might totally be fine. But it's just something to keep an eye on if you're relying him to be on field. I do think that he's good enough that he's going to be able to like hold his spot for a while. So in terms of him being a sub, I just don't think he's a guy that you're going to trade out. I feel like he's going to be someone you hold through the buys. So it probably doesn't matter whatever his price ends up. I don't think you're going to be trading him before round 12 anyway. So if he can just hold his spot through the buys, that's all you want from a guy that you're trading in this week and next week and blah, blah, blah. I don't think he's going to be a guy, though. Maybe he might, that we can cash out on, because I feel like a sub in the next 3 weeks is pretty likely.
Yeah, that's a fair flag. And like another flag is he is kind of a small forward, and we saw what Jake Rogers and other small forwards can do at times. I think he's a bit kind of, a bit better than that, just with the 270s already, and he does get around the ground a bit, but there is still that flag of the small forwards can spud it up at times.
Yeah, they do have decent fixtures though, and they're in a much better side.
Yeah, that's a big plus.
So I think he'll have plenty of goal scoring opportunities, and he looks a lively type to get involved. Like, he wants the ball as well. So he's still my number one trading option. I just think it's something to be careful of if you're relying. I see a couple of teams relying on him at F6 where they have no playing bench cover, and that scares me a little.
Yeah, well, I think just looking this week, I might have to do a loop between him, like Saints Garcia and him, for a field spot, and that sounds a bit gross. But I guess I might just have to do that for a week until I can do an upgrade next week.
I mean, Jai Clark loophole last week for some people sounded gross, and that worked out well, so who knows?
Yeah, you never know. But then
plus they play their really easy team, Essendon. They're quite bad, so he should score well. Don't you remember when we went to that game last year? The Dons versus GWS? Wasn't that a game? To remember.
Both the happiest time of my life and the most sad time of my life. The time I met Pistol, the happiest time of my life. The time Bombers lost by 150 or something, worst time of my life. So it was bittersweet.
Oh, what a memory.
Yeah. I've tried to delete it. Anyway, if you don't want to get Darcy Jones and you need like a cheaper rookie, who the hell else is there?
So, look, I've seen some people mentioning going early on Collingwood Sullivan, and I'd like to advise against it. I know he'll play this week because we have McCreary that got a concussion, and we have Tom Mitchell has appendicitis, so he's probably out for another week. Degoe is questionable from his groin injury, but all those guys are best 22. So there's going to be 3 incoming players. And as great as Sullivan was, it would be all those guys are coming back in, all 3. And it's just, do we drop a Markov? Do we drop a Sidebottom who probably needs a rest, or Hoskin Elliott? The team would have to change quite drastically, and we've been winning or drawing. So I just don't really see where the opportunities will arise for Sullivan. He seems like a very energetic, great sub-type. I would think it's even more of a risk than Lachie Jones that he starts a sub in even consecutive weeks down the line. It's not, unless there's something major that happens next week, which I hope it doesn't in Collingwood's squad, but I definitely wouldn't be going early on him.
Yeah, no, I agree. But there were some guys last week that we thought put their hand up, like Riley Hardiman had a good first game and then didn't do enough this game. Cooper Simpson had a really good first game and then barely did anything this game. This time last week, we thought there were going to be quite a few downgrade options, and I feel like it's mainly Darcy Jones.
Yeah. It's a little worrying, I'll say, especially because like next week's rookie options, which I guess we'll talk about in a moment, also don't seem to be presenting many options. So Darcy Jones looks far and away the best option. I think there's other people out there that might be considering Harvey Harrison from Collingwood, 180k.
I'll say I really like this guy. I think he's a great player, but yeah, tell us about the Collingwood team. Is he on the squeeze as well?
I mean, I think we've got to play him. One, because he's done nothing wrong. Like literally, he's played 2 awesome games where he's done everything the team needs him to do. Yeah. Seems to be really good under pressure and a good user of the ball. Exactly what we need at this point in time. I think he's probably at least set. I know we've got all those injuries, but I feel like he won't lose his place after one bad game either. Collingwood supporters want him to be in the team and play. The price tag is a little uncomfortable at 180k.
I guess when you can get Darcy Jones for nearly 60k cheaper, that sounds good. If Harvey Harrison was even like 130 or 140, I'd be all over him. I think he's a really great player. But it is hard to pay 180k for someone in the middle of upgrade season that expensive when, that 60k might be the difference between you getting a Caleb Sarong versus, I don't know, some 660k rookie or something, some 560k, sorry, mid. Like there's a fair difference in price what you can do on the other side.
Yeah. Is there any other rookies that you can see?
Kane McAuliffe, if he's back, again, he's got a low break even, but Richmond have so many injuries.
Good game in the VFL. Good game.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. But Richmond have quite a few injuries and he's still not getting a look in. They chose to bring Tyler Sonsi in instead of him, essentially, it looked like. Sonsi actually could have been an option last week because he's one that we missed just because of being subs and whatnot, but he actually played a fair bit of midfield and scored pretty well. I think it's too late for him. He's too expensive now.
Yeah.
Could you go for Riley Garcia, the Bulldogs Garcia, if you missed him? He's gone up a bit, so I guess it's kind of getting to the Harrison areas as well now.
Yeah, I wouldn't really.
The concerns are still there with the Bevo subbings and whatnot.
Absolutely still there. It's a bit of an uncomfortable situation. I mean, honestly, the other options are not very good. David Swallow has fallen down. He's fallen all the way down. He's tumbled to 167k forward mid because he's been sub a lot and also is scoring terribly. Full game last week for the first time in 5 weeks and only scored 36.
Oh, right.
But he was sub 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
He's played every game this season. So, I mean, it's not that crazy because the job security, I guess. But I also feel like this is going to get cheaper than this. So maybe we just...
51 might miss it.
Look, if he's a sub and he goes down to like 130k and he's played every game
and he has
DPP... I mean, as your M8 loop, I guess you could do it and hope he just spikes a score when he gets a full game one time. You'd be running, you'd be pretty desperate, I think, to go there. The other one though, there's one more, and not just one more. He's got a break even of -1, coming off a score of 78, and he's cheaper, 155k. Jai Clark.
There you go. I've still got Clark in my team, and he did really well this week. He genuinely could be an option. Dangerfield's out for a while.
He didn't look that bad, which is great. I mean, he's got such low time on grounds. They basically play him like a sub, even though he doesn't start as a sub. He averages like 70 minutes on field, which is like 60% time on ground or something silly. But he scored well, so keep an eye on him, I guess.
I definitely missed him in my list, but maybe that's because I already own him. But maybe he's the best one apart from Darcy Jones.
It's a ridiculous statement, but I guess it's potentially true.
So I guess our takeaway is don't try and go 2 down because I don't really think there's 2 rookies you'd want.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I mean, if we're going to take a forward look into next week, which I think at this stage you kind of have to plan 2 weeks in advance, and we're only looking at rookies, not other players that could make you some money, which we can also get to in a moment.
Yeah.
Next week, we had the debutant. What was it? Revel or
for Brisbane.
Revel. That's how you say it. Yeah. Mid forward, 102k only. And scored 59. So that's obviously pretty decent. I do worry, again, he's like a sub-risk option, which isn't great, but at least he has DPP and at least he's 102k. So I guess those are somewhat ticks. I don't love it and I wouldn't be banking on it as well. which is
Did you see his kick to handball ratio on the weekend?
I think he had infinite, didn't he? He did no handballs.
Yep, 13 kicks, 0 handballs. That's what we like to see.
Kick heavy side, yeah. Look, I'll watch again and just see how I feel next week.
Yep.
The other one, Daniel Curtin, defender mid, 175k. Now, his score wasn't great, 43, but the thing I like about Curtin is Crows are going to want to play him and want to get games into him. And if it's sub or not sub, it doesn't really matter because they're going to want to play him throughout the rest of the season. I feel like this is a guy that you could potentially have for the rest of the year. I don't know if he's going to actually make a spike score. He'll probably play, hopefully, through the buys. And his potential is really high. He was a top draft pick last year and feels like his scoring potential should be quite good. I know he had an okay game. He only scored 43, but I feel like, he was subbed out as well. I feel like that's probably his floor. I'm jinxing it now. But he's definitely on my radar for next week.
Yeah, well, Dan Curtin was someone that we were actually looking at in the preseason that potentially would have started if he was named round one. So I think we really should consider him. I think more like a 60 or maybe 55 is his floor if he gets a whole game. Like, he's a very talented player. He actually played like inside midfield in his kind of underage years, but Adelaide has said they're going to use him as kind of a key back. He can intercept a little bit as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually someone that kind of has a slow start these first 2 games and then we don't kind of pick because of the elevated price and actually goes on to do really, really well and make a lot of money. So he actually looked a lot better on the eye test, I think, than the 43. So, yeah, I think he's a good shout. I'd like to see what he does this weekend, but he could be someone that's kind of goes under the radar a little bit.
So the other guy that's 50k more and so forward, Jack Hayes.
Yeah.
He scored 115 against North Melbourne and now plays Hawthorn in back-to-back weeks. We've seen, in the past he's got injured multiple times, so there's a huge injury risk there, those ACL risks. But he has scored more tons than sub tons historically.
Yeah.
Is it? So three tons, 2 sub tons. Is the risk worth the reward at an elevated price?
Well, not this week.
Not this week.
Yeah, wait and see what he does. We saw Charlie Compton's 129 in his first game and then barely made us 70k. So you really want the spike score to be in the second game, so it's in the rolling average for longer. But if Jack has another spike score, then he could be a really quick cash cow. Also, the role he's playing, like kind of key forward, but then chopping out in the ruck pretty heavily for a pretty decent team. I think he's got really good scoring potential and just his raw numbers look amazing. So I'd like to see what he does this weekend. If he tons up again, I think he's very much an option. Potentially someone to hold through the buys. They've got the last buy as well. So maybe he can make you a really quick 120k, 130k, and then be a flip at his buy. That's an option. It kind of like I was talking about with Harrison, it does suck that he's such an elevated price because if you're kind of doing a 1 up, 1 down next week and you're getting Hayes in, that's essentially 100k less for your upgrade side of it. So if you're getting Jack Hayes in instead of, let's say it's Revel or the Brisbane guy, it's 120k difference. That might be the difference between trading in Luke Ryan and trading in Lockie Whitfield kind of thing. So you have to consider that side of it as well.
Absolutely. I do think with 28% CBAs, his floor should remain quite high, and it is really appealing that he has the final buy if he can, touch wood, not get injured till there. I think he's a really good option. I think as long as you're still doing the upgrade you want and not kind of compromising for a lesser primo, I think it's absolutely an awesome idea. Plans often go astray, but I would even look at currently doing a double downgrade, which might ruin my cadence. If I had a boost, I would probably consider that in the following week. Everyone's got issues this week, though, so you might be forced into doing it this week just to get guys that I think would play through the buys. Looking at some people's benches, they might be in trouble throughout the buys. I mean, I feel like my bench is quite strong, but I have 3 dead players. Well, they're probably dead players that they're not going to play. Maybe McAuliffe will come back, we'll see. And that feels like that's pretty good compared to some of the other teams I've seen that have like 4 or 5. And yeah, that worries me a little because throughout the buys, you need kind of as many players as you can get.
Yep. I guess Heath Chapman is someone that people have started talking about just because in the preseason, a lot of people were looking at him as kind of like that Zach Williams or Massimo kind of mid-level, like 200K guy that can probably score well and make us 150K. It just seems a bit weird doing it at this time of year when we're really trying to get all our cash to upgrade. Chapman could be an option, but also he's returning from an injury. I think obviously just wait and see what he does next week. He's not on the bubble yet, but Hayes probably seems a lot more appealing than Chapman.
A couple things. One, so for context for people, it's 251K Chapman.
Yeah.
That is awfully close to McKercher's price. I should say Chapman is on the bubble this week. This was his second game. Yeah.
Apologies.
No. It's just if you're paying this price, it doesn't seem worth it when McKercher is available.
Let's talk about Colby McKercher because there were some people who didn't start him. Pistol. And in preseason, I'm actually really annoyed at myself for this. I was saying, no, I think he's going to be the best rookie. He's going to score the most out of the whole rookie crop. He's going to make us the most money.
Yep.
And then,
you did.
At the first blink of McKercher not making money, I traded him out. And despite my own advice that he's going to be the best, and now he's kind of is playing that role I thought he would in preseason. And he's just looking like a pretty much near primo in the back line. And is it a case of can we still buy him? Because you didn't start him, you traded him in, then you trade him out. Would you trade him back in?
I've considered it.
Yeah? Talk to me.
Look, at the end of the day, the halfback role for North Melbourne is a primo defender position. Like at this stage, it doesn't even matter who it is, right? Like if it's Cheezo, gun premium. If it's McKercher, gun premium. If it's Fisher, oh, maybe not. But look, we'll see. Yeah, nearly premium. Maybe in the forward line. It's a role that typically has not even just one 100-plus guy, like 2 100-plus guys or 2 really good scorers off the North Melbourne halfback. And that's been the case for years and years and years. And realistically, it's going to be 2 of Fisher, McKercher and Cheezo. And there's probably enough room for 2 of the 3 of them to go really well. And I'd find it really strange if Cheezo was moved back immediately. Like they've come out and they said, we need to do something different in our CBAs. We got to try something different. And Cheezo had that article last week where it was like, I was expecting to play in the CBAs and forward a bit more, but it's coming a bit sooner than I expected because, we've got to change things up, which means it was a plan at some stage of the season, which tracks to the preseason articles about Cheezo's role. It was actually the reason I didn't start Cheezo, unfortunately. Don't worry, we corrected it in round 2. But I didn't start him because they specifically said that his role would change throughout the year to a midfield/forward type role, which is, we saw that midfield type role. I mean, he did still play parts in the back, but it was mostly midfield, 45% CBA, which is a fine role, but it's not like the best possible role that Cheezo can play, given he's like a 120-plus defender when he plays off the back. But if Cheezo's now going to start his transition into the midfield where he probably ends up because he's an absolute gun freak AFL player, McKercher's probably getting the rest of the year down back. And if McKercher's getting the rest of the year down back, you're buying a premium at 300,000. I mean, the guy had last week 12 kick-ins, which is absurd. And this week he had 5 and he split it with Fisher, who had 6. but it's absurd numbers he's putting out. A 135 this week, 102 in the previous week for 300k. When I was planning my trades, I was planning to pick McKercher because I could still do an upgrade before Libba got injured. McKercher in over Darcy Jones because I think McKercher is going to make more money for starters, just flat out. I think McKercher makes 100k and Jones I think probably maybe makes 100k, but then you've got the sub risk that I don't need to worry about with McKercher. And there's a kind of tiny chance McKercher just ends up being a keeper, kind of like Dacos when everyone trading him out about this time in his first year. That's right. Then went on to average 95 and it was like perfect D7 cover, which McKercher could be that exact situation. Anyway, I've been ranting. I feel like I'm ranting, but he's got a break even of negative 61. So it feels like to me you're picking either him this week or you're probably passing on him this week. But this was the last week I'd ever probably, it's still expensive, 309k. I just feel like the upside risk is there if he keeps the role. But realistically, like, I just don't really see Cheezo immediately going back, right? Like, surely they try it for 5 weeks, and if it doesn't work, he goes back after the bye, and then they say, okay, now you're a defender again. Like, I can't see them trying once and being like, yep, no good, come back, and then, job done.
No, I fully agree. I think Cheezo's kind of going to play midfield for quite a bit, and I do think McKercher's kind of going to be the number one distributor from the back line. Like, Zach Fisher will help him out, but he's not really that level of talent of player like McKercher is. And we saw in McKercher's rookie years, like playing in Launceston, he just absolutely racked it up. Like, he was kind of a 30 disposal guy, like playing full-time midfield. So when he's got the freedom in that back line, even at AFL level, I feel like I'm nearly, you and I kind of, the way we're talking, I'm nearly convincing. I'm trying to work out, can I get him instead of Darcy Jones? I don't think the price is going to work, but now I'm like, can I get him instead of Clary? Is that an option?
I'm looking at the same thing just because, I mean, Clary is his cheapest price, no doubt. I just, you really want to be sure that he's back before you jump, and he's jumping into Carlton, which is statistically the hardest midfield to score against this season, even though he's actually his favourite or second favourite team to play. I think historically in the 9 games against them, he averages 122. So he loves beating up on Carlton, but they are the hardest mid to go up against, and his form has been shaky, and Melbourne's form's been shaky. He's got a break even of 48. I mean, if he tons up, you're looking at a 20, 21k rise. Maybe it's worth delaying a week and just checking him, making sure he's fine, and grabbing McKercher instead.
Jesus, is something I have to think about. I was pretty set on bringing Clary and Bont in. It just looks so good on paper. But McKercher is interesting. If he has that halfback role, he could be 100 averaging defender for sure and still make a fair bit of money. But so I guess you kind of touched on about 3 or 4 different questions in that rant. Harry Cheezo, let's just talk about him now.
Yeah.
Do you think people should trade him out? He's kind of at the most expensive he's going to be for a bit. I think he's going to drop in price a bit. Do you trade him out now while, say, like a Luke Ryan or Caleb Sarong's in reach? Or is that going a bit early and jumping at shadows potentially?
Look, I think it is a nice price if you want to jump off, and that's fine. And you can always buy him back later if you need to. He's got the first buy, so you can jump on him after the buy and suss it all out. I think jumping off him is an okay play. It's not as scary as some people are making out to be. However, I am way more inclined to back in the talent. Sheezel still had 24 touches, was it 5 tackles, 6 marks. He's really good. Like, it's still the same guy that's dominating off halfback, and he's playing in the midfield, and maybe he goes 105 and still has some spike games and scores really well because he's just a really good player.
I think that's a fair point. Like, he was a 125 guy back there. Maybe this role makes him a 105, but that's still plenty for your D6.
That's right. And I feel like there is still that possibility, as much as we was talking about. They get to the bye and they say it's not working. Sorry, Harry's going back. and it's possible. So I mean, I'm not in a position where I could trade him. And if I had a boost and no other issues, I would entertain it just purely from a upside sort of perspective that he's in. I think he's in 100% or something, 100% of top 10K teams or 5K teams or something crazy. He's in a crazy amount of teams. Whereas if you're looking for a game-changing move and you have no issues and you want to gamble on something to try and win you SuperCoach, there's not many times I think that present themselves throughout the season, and this is potentially one of those opportunities. So I could see it being a game-winning move right now for somebody, but at the same time, it could also just be a wasted trade and unnecessary risk.
Yep, no, that's fair. And before we kind of hit record, you were talking about some of his heat maps, and he was kind of in the midfield a fair bit, but it was less than 50% still, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's less than 50%. I mean, his heat map is got him collecting a lot of the ball kind of on that wing halfback and the middle. So even so, he was playing all over the ground, but he wasn't pushing that far forward. I think he only had one possession inside 50 and all of the other 23 in the back line in the middle. So I don't think it's not as bad as he's playing half forward and mid. He's more playing mid and back. So that should raise his floor more than, when he plays half forward. Yep.
All right. Well, I think that is probably about the trade-in rookies. I think if you miss Jordan Sweet, it's not too late. I think he's still got a lot of cash to make.
Who missed Sweet?
I don't know. The amount of doors we were banging down making people get in Sweet. If you missed him, you could probably still get him, but it's just nowhere near as sexy.
No.
They're probably the trade-ins for the rookie types. There are quite a few premiums with low break-evens that I think we should talk about, that they're not really the uber premiums or not going to be top of their line probably, but they do have really low break-evens. Maybe someone could do what you've done with a Bailey Dale and just get them to make 100K with the off chance that they become close enough to a keeper, or if not, maybe they've made you 100K, but the downside is that they don't make you 100K and then they're averaging like 90 and not doing very much.
Yep.
First one's Stephen May. I actually saw someone trade in Stephen May 2 weeks ago, and that's looking like an absolute genius move.
I saw that as well in our Slack, right? They're like, Stephen May's 405K. I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah. So is it too late for him now?
Yeah, I mean, it's gone up 70K since then.
Yeah,
so
it's 470K.
This is 116 and a 131. That feels unsustainable, but well done to the. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, but well done to the person that traded him in at 405K. I mean, worst case scenario, you're cashing out with 100K profit. Which is great.
So I guess a takeaway from that is maybe not Stephen May. It's a bit late, but keep an eye out for those guys that have been premiums before. For some reason, like Stephen May got injured on a really low score, dropped down. That could be an ideal case, and he doesn't have a low break even yet, but I know Jaden Short is like down in that price range, and maybe in a week or two he starts putting another score together. Could be an option.
I like Shorty. He's still got a break even of 89, which means you get a second week to look at him because he scored 115 last week. So he'll still be under 400,000 next round, which is an absolute bargain for someone who's got 100 potential. And even if you don't think he's going to be a keeper, there's still. Well, I believe, and it depends on how you want to play the game, but I still believe these guys can play a part in your season where, if you buy for 400K and you sell for 500K at his buy, he has around 15 buy, which is perfect because you get extra scores throughout the whole of the buy rounds, and then you flip him for 100K profit. You can optimize your team throughout the buys and get the best of the best then. But until that point, it's just about the amount of points you can get on your field. And I feel like that's what I wanted to do with Bailey Dale, was flip him at his buy and hope he got to a higher price. And that's that's worked out, I guess, so far. But Short feels like the exact same thing. I just don't know if his upside is as high, purely because he had the role in rounds 2, 3, 4 where he put out 60s.
Yeah.
And it got quite a bit of the ball, like, in the 23, 24 disposal area. He was just using it badly, which is a risk of just happening again.
Yeah, it is. Or maybe it's the early season jitters and he's turned it around. But yeah, so I guess the takeaway is that like I never ever looked at these kind of moves. Like I was always just one up, one down, go to your big dogs. Like don't muck around with someone at 400k to then trade them out at 500. But with the extra trades and I guess some of our rookie, like I feel like the sub rule is really stunting quite a few of our rookie cash gens. So we maybe need to try and find money in other areas as well.
Yep.
So the Stephen Mays of 2 weeks ago, maybe the Jaden Short of next week if he has a good one this week. It's an option. Dylan Moore, not too late to get on Dylan Moore. He's up there now. He's in the 500s.
I think maybe it's too late to get on Dylan Moore. And I say this with great regret, given he, we've basically just sat there idly watching him at the low 400s and then put out 3 tons in a row. And now we're like, oh, should we get Dylan Moore? Which sounds quite ridiculous. But these sorts of guys go through purple patches. I mean, before Dylan Moore, we saw Shea Bolton go through a nearly identical purple patch where he had in rounds 3, 4, and 5, he did 119, 133, 129. And then in the next 2 rounds after that, he's gone 67 and 36. And now his price, which peaked at 560, he's now sitting at 521 with a break even of 194. So he's going to have two weeks of going down. Like he's going to be back down to 450k. And this is what these sorts of guys, including Moore,
I agree.
They get into these cycles, and it's just about timing it and picking them up when it suits you, when it's the cheapest. And there's so many of them as well. Like, Kerno and Mackay will probably be the exact same. Kerno's just put out a 59 and plays Melbourne and Swans in the next 2. Like he could definitely get back into the 450s. And then, you just, if the timing works out, you pick them up and you just ride them. You enjoy the highs and suffer through the lows, but you get that 90 average at the end of the day, and that's what you pay for.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. There's going to be some variance. So, yeah, probably once they're over 500, it's hard to look at these kind of guys. I was happy that I got more last week for his big score, and hopefully has a few more. But I'm knowing that there might be some 70s coming from him as well. So I think that's just the forward line this year, though. But the upside is don't buy them over 500 because they probably will be below 500 at some stage.
Yep. Absolutely.
And just you mentioned Mackay and Kerno. Those two, the Carlton run after their bye looks delicious. So I'm actually saving a spot or 2 in my forward line. Probably going to jump on one of those. I don't like having key forwards in my team, but there is a Carlton run kind of coming up after their bye where I think there could be some big ones. So that's a potential put on your radar as well.
Absolutely. I've got my eye on Kerno as well.
Yep. Darcy Parish, is he back? This exact question got posed to us last week, and we said no because there was a medal on the line. Was he back? Well, he's done it this week in a West Coast game that didn't really matter with no medal. So is Darcy Parish back?
So the issue I have is Caldwell got injured, but he was playing. He had 0 CBAs, and we've basically seen Parish go from 60% CBAs against Collingwood, which I'm like, yeah, you know what, 60% CBAs probably not enough to average, super primo numbers. And then this week, out of nowhere, has gone to 81% CBAs, Caldwell down to 0%, and Stringer, who was so effective against Collingwood, went from 75% CBAs down to 27. So all of that terrifies me because I find it really hard to predict. Is this the week, that from this point onwards, can I say with confidence that Parish is going to have 80% CBAs? Because if so, absolutely get him. 530k is the 115 plus upside. They've got a great draw, great fixtures. I mean, it's the stars are aligning to get him. But if you're getting him and he has 60% CBAs, then you're probably buying in on low 100 average with an injury risk.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this?
Well, like I'm pretty confident Darcy Parish is should be Essendon's number 2 CBA mid, and like I'm not too worried about the CBAs. I'm pretty confident he's like a 70% plus CBA guy. But my issue with Parish, and I talked about it in the preseason, is that he just doesn't get many tackles for a premium midfielder, and his disposal efficiency is really average. So most of the premium midfielders average, kind of 6.5 tackles a game and maybe go like 75% disposal efficiency. Parish generally is like a 4 tackle guy and a 65% disposal guy. And that's why he's kind of never, apart from that 1 year where we went bonkers, that's kind of what's stopping him being a 112 guy in my opinion. And he did it for the first, month of the year. But then these last 2 rounds, he's averaged 6 tackles and he's gone at 80% and 75% disposal efficiency. Kind of just out of nowhere. So I guess my question is, why did Darcy Parish suddenly become a 15% disposal efficiency better? And why has he gone like up 2 tackles a game in the last 2 weeks?
Oof.
And that gives me a bit of a cause for not wanting to pick him, because like maybe you've just said he's got a boost in CBAs. I could see maybe him getting the 2 tackles a game from that. But why is he all of a sudden kicking at nearly 80% disposal efficiency? That's the bit that worries me a bit. So I'm a Bombers fan and I was actually considering starting Parish. I'm glad I didn't in the end. But yeah, it's just like a 2-week hot streak of hitting targets and laying tackles that kind of just feels like it's come out of nowhere for me.
I mean, players do get confident and have these purple patches, and we've seen Parish do that on a number of occasions where he's strung together like 5 or 6 incredible games in a row.
Yeah.
And historically, I'm pretty sure it's around this time of the year as well.
Yeah, it's when the medals are on the line. Like he's got Dreamtime coming up as well.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, it's so hard to predict. There's no real way of knowing. He had 11 marks. That may be a career high for him.
Yeah.
He's not usually someone that gets that many marks. You've got to go with your gut on this one. I mean, it's 528k, so that the price is very kind. You could free up cash if you need to, but also like he started the season, I mean, injured for starters, which is a bad sign because, interrupted preseason. He's always been injury prone. He started the year with 80, 72, 61, 84, which is terrible. And then it's just gone 125, 148. So this is, really a high risk, high reward pick. And I think I'm a high risk player, I think, but this is like one too much for me.
Well, I guess at that lower price with the low break even, you could nearly view him as someone that you ride for 4 weeks, maybe till his buy, hopefully makes you a bit of money, and then flip to like a Dunkley or even a Butters or someone that's just come off their buy, maybe, but he won't really make you like the 100k that kind of your Bailey Dale did. Or if he has made you 100k, that means he's in the 600s and you're not really trading him out.
After his buy, he has West Coast, Geelong, Collingwood in a row.
Ooh.
So I don't think anyone's trading him. I mean, his draw is incredibly good.
Yeah,
I'll give him that. So it's a good time to buy in terms of the draw, but I feel like the person to buy is Zerrett, not Parish.
Yeah, well, that one's I think that's a pure gut feel one, because I just think stats can't predict why he's all of a sudden hitting nearly 80% of his targets.
And getting a boost to time on ground. It's just too hard to know in that one. So apologies, that's in the too hard basket for this podcast.
It's in the back your gut basket.
Yeah, absolutely.
Clayton Oliver, I think this needs a bit of discussion because he's one of the hottest topics right now. We know what Clayton's done before. Like he's started last year over $700,000, one of the best midfielders of the last 5+ years. He's had a very interrupted preseason, broken hand, all the off-field issues. He's now down at a really, really, really juicy price and just put up a huge score. I know there's some people thinking Clary's back. Let's just get him now. There's some people thinking, this is his first good game of the year. Let's see another round or two and he won't have gone up that much money. What are you thinking?
So there's a couple of key things I wanted to see when I was watching Oliver. One, it was, I guess, how he was physically moving, like, bursting through the packs or away from the pack and on the spread. One of the other things I wanted to see was him demanding the ball. Always in every other season, he runs past the player and screams at them to hand him the ball. Trademark Clary. And the last one was his CBAs to go back up, because his CBAs have kind of been in the 60s. He had one game in round 3 of 80% CBA. Round 5 it was down to 42% CBAs. So they've all been all over the place. And in the last 2 weeks, I've seen him go 81% CBAs and 78%, which I think, if you're averaging out at about 80% CBAs, great sign. He was bursting from packs against Geelong, and he was demanding the ball. So 3 ticks on all the things I wanted to see. So I was very happy with the eye test. However, the one part that is clearly a negative is his fitness base must be an issue, because his time on ground is very low. He's playing in the 80s minutes at the moment, where historically he'd be up above 100. So when you're playing 20 minutes less per game, you're going to score roughly 20% less than your previous. So unless he can get those numbers, his time on ground back, which I imagine will come through on fitness, gone are the days of Clary 120 plus average. It's more likely a 100 average with upside of 120 as that fitness base builds. So I don't think it's like this home run that everyone's thinking of. This is more of he's cheap now, and by the time the buys come, and it's fine if he averages 100 till then, as long as he's averaging 120 on the run home, we're all sweet. And that is very much on the cards. But that, I think, is the reason why most people are buying him. Or if you think you're going to get 120 straight away because he scored 141 this week, I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. So if he averages 100 up until his buys, he's still going to make us some money, and I guess it's more chances to get looks at him and see if he is going to be that guy we want in our final teams. I don't mind the idea at all of having another week, getting a look at him, especially against Carlton, who are a bit harder. I've got a gut feeling that Hewitt is probably going to tag Petrarca, which, who knows, maybe that frees Oliver up a bit. I don't think we can really predict tags that well, though. So I guess, like you said, even if he goes 100 this week, he's not going to rocket up in price and get away from you. I am potentially looking to do it as my sideways from Rosie with my boost. But I guess then there's a few other guys, I could get Petrarca as well. But I'm not actually convinced Petrarca's a top 8 mid anymore. That sounds a bit... He hasn't looked good the last few weeks, I don't think.
I mean, look, the two things. One, he's been sat on a lot of the time. He's been tagged for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But two, he doesn't seem 100% to me. Something seems off. He's not doing enough to beat his man. He's losing, which is not really a Petrarca thing. I'm expecting him to be ultra aggressive and like a fighter for his team. I think he had an article about, he had to do more and stuff. But I don't know if it's the motivation or the team is just not playing as well as they'd hoped. But I don't think I'm not seeing what I need to see from the eye test to even trade him in at 551k.
No, I was waiting for him to get to this price and I was going to jump all over him, and I'm not really going to do it, I don't think. But I guess that's the question for people in my boat or your boat. Let's say you were sideways in Tom Green instead of Libber or something. Someone that's trying to get off one of these kind of 550, 500 premiums that are injured or failing. and let's say, I don't know, let's put a number like you've got 560K in the bank. I guess Oliver's really tempting because you can go right down and probably pocket about 80K for next week's upgrades, and it seems a lot less risky because he's a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
Or do you go for like a Petrarca or a Parrish or a Zorko or someone in that range? I think it's going to be a pretty popular question this week.
I would plan differently. I would make alternative plans. I think if you need to upgrade your cadence and you can't, do something so that you're double upping next week or boosting and double upping and one downing, I think you can do Oliver because I feel at the end of the day he's at a price in which, given all the fallen primos, we probably are able to swing him to M9 at the end of the day. So that should be okay. But I don't think I'd be jumping in on any of the other people in that price bracket right now. Just feels like all of them have their own risks and issues. I think the only player sub 550-ish or 60, as you said, that looks like they might be decent or close to top of the line is probably Hayden Young in the back line, 535K. Has the good buy, so will help your scoring throughout them. And he doesn't even look 100% at the moment either. So
no, and I wonder if he benefited from Fife not being in the team.
Absolutely. I mean, look, someone's getting tagged by James Jordan next week, and it could be anyone. So I'm scared of all Fremantle trade-ins.
No, that's fair enough. So I guess then there's some other names with low break-evens that probably aren't really premiums, but I'll just give you some names. I don't really want to talk about them in as much detail as we've done those other ones, but do any of these names jump out as someone that you maybe would have an inkling of interest in? Bailey Dale, too late for him?
I'd say 100% until Libber's out indefinitely, purely because the role is so good when Richards is out of the midfield. And very unexpected. I just didn't think that role would continue where they would Richards would just play as a CBA mid. I mean, bring it open now, but the last 2 weeks... Oh, no, it didn't. It didn't continue. He dropped fully out of the CBAs when Libwood's back. So, it's fully contingent on... Bailey Dale is like tethered to Libber, which is kind of a strange one because Richard plays as a CBA mid. So, look, if they said Libber... If you got any news that Libber was out for like ages, then Dale's an option. But otherwise, I don't think so, this price.
Yeah. Is Jack Sinclair back?
No.
All right. Is Nick Newman back?
With Zach Williams gone, Newman probably has some great scores for the next couple of weeks, but I assume Zach Williams will come back. So
they said a hammy, and they've got a bye in a couple of weeks, so maybe it's just before then or just after. Yeah,
that's definitely a POD, 1% of teams.
Is Rory Laird going to turn it around?
I would not touch anybody in that Adelaide midfield because the CBAs are all over the place, and there's just not enough to know for sure.
I'm so terrified of that midfield mix.
I have one, and I am not having fun with it. So
I don't think I've recommended either Laird or Dawson for anyone's captain this year, despite recommending them like every week last year, just because I don't know who's going to do what in that Adelaide midfield this year.
Yeah, no, way too scary. I mean, you just don't know.
Isaac Rankin, is he over 500k? Is he too expensive?
Look, he's 497, so on a technicality. I think the draw is quite good. Brisbane, Collingwood, West Coast, Hawthorn, Richmond, Swans, and a lot of Adelaide Oval. I guess same draw as Dawson, some may say. I just feel like it's in that category where they drop lower in price. So I probably wouldn't pay. I'd get Kerno, who's cheaper. Almost for next week. Yeah.
All right. Dane Zorko.
This one's really difficult because Zorko is, while he's playing, is easily, top 3 forward.
Yep. And while he's playing defence, like last week, he got moved around a lot up forward and mid. He was just a pig on the weekend.
160 points, and now has Adelaide, Richmond, Hawthorn, Bulldogs, St Kilda. Oh, God, he's going to absolutely murder the non-owners. Absolutely murder.
And now that he does have a bye, he has only 3 games until his bye, though, so it's a bit like Dunkley, was saying he's great, but should you buy someone when they've got a bye in a month?
Look, the draw is that good.
Yeah.
That you definitely could take advantage of it. And his price, $560, he's probably going to get close to the $580 because of this spike score in the next couple of weeks. The problem is you're buying, how old is he? 32, 34, something?
Ancient.
And he's had a history of suspensions, a history of injuries. He's always a good scorer when he plays, but he's just so much better than some of the other forwards that I do feel like it might be worth buying and just trading when he gets injured. And much like Tom Green, you can't really... Tom Green I thought would break down at some point that I've owned in the last 2 years and he doesn't get 3 seasons. I just didn't expect it to be 5 minutes into owning him.
Yeah.
The same with Zorko. Like, if he gets broken in round 19 and you have to trade him, well, you've probably, in that period of time, he's probably averaged 110 or something, and you're probably happy. I feel like you can buy him.
I think I'd rather him than the Parrish and the Petrarca in that range, which is really weird to say.
I tend to agree with you. I mean, I feel like you can not buy him this week because Adelaide.
Yeah.
And he could score well against everyone, but his break-even is 102. So it's not like a necessary buy. But next week for Richmond and then Hawthorn, God, if Hawthorn don't throw the fin tag at him, that will be depressing. I feel like you get real riled up by the fin tag.
You just excited me by reading out that draw. So I just looked, can I get Zorko instead of Oliver? But I'm 2K short of it, so that means I don't even have to make that decision.
Well,
but it is very, very enticing.
Yeah, how frustrating. Oh, well, it is what it is. I think we just push that one to the back of our head and compartmentalise not owning Zorko this year.
So we still own Isaac Heaney and Sam Flanders. I'll console myself with those two.
They seem like good blokes.
Yeah. Last couple that are, I guess, underpriced that maybe could near top liners, Noah Anderson or Hayden Young. Any interest in people buying them?
I think you can do both of those guys. Look, Hayden Young with the bye gets a couple of points added to his average. So I feel like he's a top 6 guy or thereabouts. So that seems fine to me. Anderson is still averaging 110. And the Gold Coast draw is ridiculous. Like, I'm looking through it.
It is.
They've already played a bunch of easy teams, right? And then he's got North Melbourne and then Geelong, like 2 really easy teams again. I'm like, when does it end? It's constantly easy.
Yeah. And
he goes huge. He always dominates, is flat track bully. Look, at 565, he might not be a top 8 mid, but he's in that top 15 area, and I feel like you're getting enough value that it's probably worth it. And he can be a cheeky VC sometimes, probably not captain, but VC.
I wish he played earlier in the week. A lot of times Gold Coast seem to get the Sunday slots.
Yeah,
that is annoying.
He does look better to me eye test wise than Took. And it's cheaper, so I probably would consider it. Although Raul might drop now, and he's been looking better than both of them. I will say though, do you think Gold Coast are a good side?
Yeah, I still do. Like, they were shocking yesterday, but I still think they're a good side, and I think they're a crack to make the finals, like a chance to make the finals. But yeah, I don't know. They do have some deficiencies, or they just have games where they just don't look it at all.
I was just going through their fixtures because they're sitting okay on the ladder. They've won 4 games. They've won half their games. But then I was looking at the teams they beat. Richmond, they beat in the first round, and then they played Adelaide in round 1 when Adelaide were just like kind of a basket case. And then they beat Hawthorn, and then they beat West Coast. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's 3 of the bottom 4 teams. And now they play North Melbourne. They're probably going to beat North Melbourne, and then they'll have beaten 4 of the bottom 4 teams.
Yeah.
And Adelaide when they were out of sorts.
Yeah, that's a good pickup.
They might just not be very good. And I guess it helps that they've got such an easy draw. The draw is absolutely ridiculous, but I don't like buying into teams that I think are particularly poor, because it just makes things way more unpredictable when they don't get that much of the pie.
Yeah.
And when they're not the sole superstar player of that team as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happens when you get absolutely dominated? This is this weekend when none of the Gold Coast players, except for Flanders, none of the Gold Coast mids ton up because they just get absolutely hammered. And that's a real possibility when they play some of the better teams.
Yep. No, absolutely. I think he's also, I'm going to say everyone's got a bye coming up, obviously. He doesn't have the early one. I believe he's got one of the middle ones. So
14, yep.
I guess you could get him off the bye. Like maybe you've got a Jordan Dawson kind of hanging till round 15, and then you could swap it to a Noah if you like Noah's draw. Maybe that's an option.
How ridiculous is this? He's got North Melbourne in round 9, and then he has his bye in round 14, and his next 3 games are Fremantle, Collingwood, and North. Play North Melbourne again.
Yeah, have him again. Well, I think Essendon have West Coast again very soon, even though they just played them this week off the top of my head.
That's pretty funny. Going to look that up. Yeah, they played them in round 15, and they just played in round 8.
Off their bye.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is. All right, so that's some maybe speculative primos with low break-evens. Let's talk about the top-tier dogs that have low break-evens. And this is really hard because they're really expensive, but they've got low break-evens and they might get away from you if you don't get them. So I guess the question is going to be around, do you pay up for these guys and getting these top liners, or do you just kind of know their price is going to go up and then later hope it comes back down and then you can get them around the buys or after the buys? So the most obvious one, Luke Ryan, that 197 was insane. He's now 644K. He had a break-even of 165, by the way, and I was planning to get him this week or next, thinking he'd be under 600K. That's ruined all the plans. But 644K, can you pay up for that? He's got a break-even of 64. He's averaging 134, and he has Sydney this week, who give up a lot of points to defenders, but he could be James Jordan tagged. And then he has St Kilda, so he has a couple of really good matchups for defenders. So he could easily get away in price, but is that just too much to pay?
644 is a lot for a defender. Look, it's worth it when they go in 133 average and they're so far ahead of, they're clearly in the top 3, but, he's clear by 15 points over the next best defender on average. So you're going to want him in your side at some stage, and he's really monopolised the kick-ins now that Hayden Young's not there as well, so he just gets lots of free points, and it seems somewhat sustainable. Maybe not 133, but 120 seems pretty sustainable to me.
Yeah, I agree.
The issue I have is that tag that may or may not come. In my mind, it seems like quite obvious that we're shut down Whitfield and Swans win, and now you're versing Fremantle. A guy just had 39 touches and was dominant, and you're like, yeah, maybe I'll just do the exact same thing and that should work. So I don't feel comfortable trading into it myself just because of that chance, but I'm fully aware, playing St Kilda in 2 weeks, that's a captaincy territory where the price could absolutely escape 700,000, which means coming up into the buys, unless there's a late injury where I'm sideways trading to him, his price is escaped, and I no longer can afford him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and that might happen. I mean, it is still Luke Ryan. He did put out an 80 a couple of weeks ago, and there is still potentials that he seems to always drop to 550, but maybe he's just that good this year that he doesn't. I think I'd rather pay up for someone like Tim English or Marcus Bontempelli that's come way down in price and did this huge scoring last year. But geez, it's just so hard not owning him.
Yeah, I think if you can afford it and you're willing to take the risk that the tag might just never come, then just go for it. If it doesn't really hamper the rest of your team in any way and you need a defender, I think you just do it at this price. He's just so much better even once he gets tagged, he's going to average 120 for the rest of the season. So, and every other midfielder has a down game. So it's really not that much different. But if you're changing your team so much that you have to get in like Sullivan, a rookie in that's going to make no money compared to like Darcy Jones or whatever it might be. I mean, Sullivan might be okay if something happens, but yeah, if you have to like significantly change your trade plans to try and fit in the extra 20k to get Luke Ryan, then I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, if it works naturally with kind of still getting the best rookie.
I wish I had Luke Ryan.
All right. Yeah, me too. Josh Dunkley, obviously coming off a really big score. I've been talking him up for a bit of the year saying like I'm pretty confident this guy's a top 10 mid. He's kind of flown under the radar. Like, to be fair, he's only averaging about 110 until this point. I've got him in draft and he's just like my perma captain, so I've got a big Dunkley man crush. But a buy in after 3 more games, 618k, averaging 117. His break even 69, so he's going to go up in price for a few times. So then if you're trying to buy him after his buy, he's going to be pretty expensive. Would you rather just buy him now?
I mean, his fixtures are awesome, right? It's Adelaide, Richmond, Hawthorn, same as Zorko, which makes it super appealing because you can't get him at the buy because you're not paying 670k for Dunkley. And I'm quite sure he's going to get to 670k. So you're buying him this week or you're likely just passing on Dunkley. Honestly, at 620k, I think I'm just not getting Dunkley. Like, even after this big score, and he's been super consistent and great, he's averaging 117. I mean, you said you think he's a top 10, right? Mm-hmm. I tend to agree. Like, do you think he's top 5?
Probably not. I've probably still got the let's go through like Bont, Green. This isn't in an order. I'm just naming them. Bont, Green, Sarong, Butters, Merritt are probably my 5.
And then you got Rowell.
Yeah, and then I probably got Rowell at 6. So I might as well get this up now. I did redo my projections and kind of where I've got them all finishing. And
because I think it's I get paying 620 for one of those guys because you're really confident they're going to be top 6.
Yeah,
out of an 8-person line, so you don't really want to miss them. They could go 5 points clear of the next band, and I don't think Dunkley's in that band. So I don't want to pay 620k for someone not in that band, but I do appreciate he's going to have some really good games in the next couple and be a POD, which is really nice. And he went on a month tear last year where he averaged 140.
He can do that.
So he can do that, but he's also been injured nearly every season. So same way as I was worried about. I think I quoting. I messaged Blake on Slack when we were talking about premium mids, and I said, Tom Green has a lot of upside, but I buy him the same way as I buy Dunkley, where you get the good points and you're going to have to trade him out due to an injury at some stage, right? And then 5 minutes later, Green gets injured. But the same thing I feel with Dunkley, right? Like 5 minutes later, same thing might happen.
He's got injured in the past plenty of times.
His soft tissues as well.
So I've actually got Dunkley as the next, like the number 7 behind those big 6, and I don't have him that much behind Rao for the rest of the year. So I think he's okay, but yeah, For me, it is the buy. Like that first buy sucks having one in the next 4 weeks, but then also, he's going to be 670 or something after that, so you can't really buy him.
No, if you're getting him, it's this week.
Yeah, so I think there's still better options, and the next one, this actually might just be my number one trade-in target priority for people that don't have him, is Tim English. 612k, like I think he's really starting to hit his straps now. They're kind of they've messed around with that 3-ruck rotation and now Lob's out, and I think it's back to English being the main guy with Sam Darcy helping him out. Got a break even of 80. He just, put a big score on Hawthorn. He now has Richmond, who have given up a lot of points to rucks. And then he has Kieran Briggs, who's the easiest ruck matchup in the league. So there's going to be, I'm saying it's 3 130 pluses in a row, and he could be really expensive soon. So I think if you don't have English, I think try and find a way to get him. There's a couple I wouldn't. Like if you've got Jordan Sweet at R2, I wouldn't get rid of him yet. I'd keep riding him. If you've got Lloyd Meek at R2, I'd actually probably still keep riding him because I think he's got a fair bit of money to make too. Maybe he matches the money English makes over the next few weeks. But if you're kind of rocking, I don't know, still a Grundy or a Cherry, I think it's a perfect time to get onto Tim English.
Yeah, it's tough with rucks because a lot of people have Sweet or a lot of people have Meek, so they're not interested in doing that upgrade. But I do agree that English is about to work his way closer to 700k, and I'm holding Meek and I'm happy for the tons, but I'm not saving money by holding Meek and not getting English. Or I'm not doing it because I can't afford to right now. That's the truth. Because Meek's going to go up 50k, but so is English. So it's not a money game anymore. I just need the time to be able to do a downgrade to be able to upgrade Meek to English.
Yeah, and when we've got so much under carnage, it's hard to do. But I think Cherry and Grundy are getting close to their time to goes, but could also hold them. But English is awesome. Caleb Sarong, 639. He's got a break even of 87.
Yeah,
he's just incredible. Like he talked about his demanding for the ball and his observable thirst, and he just looks so hungry for it.
Every game, I'm so impressed by him. Every game.
It's incredible. I'm a first-time owner this week, just gone, and it was a very, very nice time. Made my Sunday. He repaired the tyres on my tandem bike and got me back going again. So he also, like we talked about potential tags coming up for Luke Ryan, they also could go to Caleb Sarong.
Absolutely.
James Jordan could go to him. Windhager could go to him when the Saints play him. We thought he'd get maybe tagged by Pickett last week, and that didn't happen. So that just proves how unpredictable the tags are. I don't really think it's too late to buy Sarong.
No, I mean, he's averaging 130. So that's...
And with that amazing buy we've talked about with Freo and Port, that gives him some extra weighting. He's going to cover you for the other 3 buys where there's a lot more people out.
Yeah, that's all the stars are lining up for you to get an effective 130 average from him this season. It's far and away better than other players. That it just makes worth having.
And it was interesting that last week we were recommending all these guys kind of between like 570 and 600. And this week we're saying either like you go way down to maybe Clary or McKercher, or you go way up to like 630k. So it's really changed in a week.
It does, but we are 1 week closer to the buy. You need to take it into consideration, and realistically the Port and Fremantle guys are always going to be upgrade targets at this point of the year because they don't impact your buy structure, or don't negatively impact your buy structure.
Well, they help you.
So Ryan, Sarong, Butters, Rosie when he's back from his injury, Houston, and even maybe Luke Jackson pending Darcy news, like all these guys are going to be on people's radars. Hayden Young as well, I forgot, just because they're so good for the buys. And at this stage, you don't really want to be trading into a guy that's got the week off the very next week and you're covering with a rookie or covering with a donut or covering with your 26th best player. So it does make a difference. And a lot of these guys happen to be 600k because they're really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give people one trade in that's below 600. I think Nick Martin is still a fine buy.
Yeah.
Break even at 91, averaging 111. In the projections I've just done, I've actually now got him as D4,
Whoa.
like the fourth highest defender for the year. And that's not necessarily because he's gone up. It's because Stewart and Cheezo have gone down in my thoughts. So, yeah, I actually think like I've got Ryan and Dacos well ahead of everyone, and then Houston and then Martin. So I think he's absolutely a keeper defender, and you could still buy him.
Where Bailey Dale?
Bailey Dale coming.
Great. I'm looking forward to that.
Coming hard.
No, Nick Martin, I agree with what you're saying. He's so good, and he's scoring well.
Lachie Neale also probably needs a little bit of respect put on his name. Like, he's been so good for so long. We keep waiting for old man ball lock, but he's just still doing really, really well.
Oh my God, he's had such a good season, and you like people are like, oh, we didn't consider Neale. I'm like, yeah, because he missed a week. Like he was out in round 1.
And then he had the bye in round 2.
So, of course, no one was going to recommend Neale or start with Neale. That would not make any sense. And then he had these minutes restricted in weeks 4 and 5, where he played like 84 minutes compared to his usual 110. And he still scored 125 against North. He's not really putting out any bad games, but like I feel uncomfortable with like the minimal injury risk that Dunkley and Green presented, and now you want me to buy into an older injury-prone player and Lachie Neale? Like, I can't do that. I can't even. Like, I'm struggling with thinking about Zorko. Like, how can I buy Lachie Neale?
I don't have the opinion or that Lachie Neale's reputation is injury-prone so much. I feel like he's been
back
all right,
injury,
but maybe,
and he missed this year with injury already. One of the games.
Oh well, he missed round 1. Yeah, fair. I think he could be a top 10 mid or close enough to it. Like, I don't put him in that level, kind of near the Dunkleys or Petrarcas, kind of knocking on the door of the bigger dogs. But that next tier, where there's probably 15 players in it, he's probably leading it nearly for me.
Yeah. Okay. Like, yeah, that makes sense with the Walsh or something.
I wouldn't necessarily. I don't know if I'd recommend buying him though, because he's not in that top tier and he's got to buy in a month or 3 weeks. So that's a tough one.
Very quickly, because we just brushed over Tom Stewart at 523k.
Yep.
He's got a break in of 132, so we're still going to go down a little bit more in price. Now, I've watched Tom Stewart quite a lot, and I'm not sure if you have. Does he look right to you?
I think he's even kind of not looking right aside. I think he's playing slightly different type role. It seems like he's playing a lot deeper, and guys like Max Holmes are kind of getting up and kind of being the out of defence transition. So I feel like even that side of it, he's not probably the 115 Tom Stewart that we were hoping for or expecting. I think he could still be, I don't know, like a 105, that kind of D6 range, but there are some question marks. But I still, like, I've got him in my team and I'm not upset about it, but it could change.
He was on 78 at halftime and finished on 104. And he's I don't think he's massively passing the eye test so far. He's not demanding you to buy him. I don't think I'd get him this week. I think I'd wait against Port and see again, because if he looks flat, I mean, obviously that's a poor second half, and he has done, amazing halves, but he has scored a 77 this year. Like, let's see how he goes against Port. Not the easiest matchup, but if he only puts out, an 80s or a 90s, you might end up looking elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's fair. With that big break even, you definitely don't need to buy him now.
Sorry, I distracted you from the Primos
I think
players.
that's fair because it is that's fair because it is someone that I'm like. We have got questions. Do I go up for Luke Ryan or do I go down to Tom Stewart? So that's like there's been a lot of questions about that, and I think we're suggesting Luke Ryan, aren't we?
Yeah, I think he's much, much, much better than Tom Stewart.
Yeah, Nick Martin's the one that I potentially would buy. I think it's more between Nick Martin and Luke Ryan rather than Tom Stewart.
Yep, makes sense.
Actually, Dacos, just while we're talking about defenders, we're tangenting a bit, but Dacos still has a break even of 78 and like 620k. I think he's actually still a really good buy. I think
everyone's got him by now, hopefully.
Hopefully they do. I know some don't, but yeah, just he's still an option.
He really only had one bad game. Like he's only had one sub-ton, which was the 54. And we were kind of saying at the time, like, he went down to 560. So if you bought him then, you won the battle of was it worth starting him or not starting him. And ironically, it was against St Kilda.
And he wasn't, I think he had a little bit of Windhager attention, but it wasn't like a proper fin tag.
No, it wasn't.
We were thinking.
But since that point, he's pretty much averaged like 135 or something stupid like that. So,
I mean, I've still got him ranked D1 right now. Like Luke Ryan's trying to burn his house down, but it's a race between the two, but they're just as good as each other. I think.
Absolutely.
Marcus Bontempelli, 623k, break even of 111, averaging 119. I think Bont's kind of just been like idling through the season so far, been played around forward a bit. He was my number one captain option last week from my video because I think he's just about to take off as well. He just had Hawthorn, did really well against Sam. He now has Richmond, who I think he should absolutely obliterate. I haven't done my captain's research yet, but he's going to be well up there again.
I think he's got an amazing record against them as well. Amazing record.
Yeah, absolutely. He does have GWS the following week, who's a bit harder for inside mids, but I don't know if they will be without Tom Green or if they'll have Tom Green. Who knows? If they'll have Cornelio or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think Bont's a really, really good purchase this week, and it's a purchase I'm making this week.
It's got 3 rounds of Richmond of a 153, 122, 136. So very high. But I will say, like, Bont's not passed my eye test either, to be completely frank. I mean, you're right. He's just sitting in, not even second. He's probably sitting in third gear going 120. Not many players can do that in the AFL. So I'd rather have him than not have him because, by the time he gets into first gear, it could be upwards of 700k. But I don't think he's not looking that great, to be honest. This was a crunch time game. He got a couple of goal assists, which he does because he wins games off his own boot because he's Marcus Bontempelli and is amazing. But in a game that's a blowout, this performance is 100 flat. And his dream team has dropped off significantly.
It does.
I'll just bring it up, but it's gone way down because he's just a different, I guess, type of beast this year than he was previously.
Yep.
Trying to buy time to do the research, and I can't multitask, so I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. 101 average in Dream Team compared to 117 last year. So very big drop off.
Like, that is a fair indicator of like just raw stats, so like disposals and marks and goals and whatnot. So I guess based on that, he's kind of dropped off in those categories.
Yeah.
Which he's kind of keeping his SuperCoach alive because he does those really impactful game-winning things. But how long can you rely on that? He kind of needs to get his just beast mode Bont back.
Absolutely.
My gut feeling is he does do it this week and then probably hopefully continues it. But I think he's easily the top, like in that top 5 mid mix. And you want him in your team, and this may well be as cheap as he gets for a while.
He's kicking a lot of goals this year. He's kicked 12 goals for. So going at a goal and a half per game, which is double what he went last year. A
lot of that's been because he's been made to play full forward for whole quarters as well, though. Yeah,
that is true. CBAs aren't that much down, but he does seemingly run forward a lot. I noticed the commentators kept making a big deal about it that he was following Meek to the goal square in Bulldogs forward half, and English was sitting back at like the 50-meter arc, kind of doing what Gawn does, where he takes those intercept marks when they do the kicks out, the rush kicks out of the D50.
Sounds like a bit of a game plan.
Yeah, so he was taking Meek, who's obviously tall enough, so he was going all the way down, which meant he was like at full forward. So when there was things going on, he was not in the right place at the right time, which might have a minor impact. I'm not sure, but Yeah, definitely. There's a raw statistical drop off. Two tackles less per game. 1.5 marks less per game, 2 disposals, which is ironically 4 kicks less per game because he's handballing more than last year.
Okay.
So there's some things that are not in. I guess there's some negatives with Bont. It's not all roses.
Yeah, that's right. And I think he actually he had some guys in Slack do comparisons with and without Libba, and he's actually quite a bit worse without Libba. It's been very, very, very low sample size. I think Libba's only missed 5 games or something, while Bont's played kind of in the last 5 years or whatever it is. But slight worry, maybe. I don't know. I still think he's a top 5 mid, and we should just buy him when he's cheap.
Yep, fair enough.
Zach Merritt is probably the last one that's kind of a break even that he'll probably hit.
God is good.
636. He just keep waiting for him to drop down. He just keeps not.
So he kicked 3 goals, right? And he was doing, I don't know, I felt like, what was he on, 33 at halftime or something? And then he finished on 121. I'm like, come on.
Yeah,
he
just went bonkers. I'm still, as an Essendon fan, I'm so used to seeing Zach Merritt tagged. And it's only happened once this year, so there's a part of me that thinks he still will get tagged and drop in price, but maybe he won't. He got tagged in the second half of that Adelaide Crows game by McHenry. He was on 70 at halftime and then kind of only had a 30-something second half, so a tag still works on him. But teams just aren't tagging yet this early in the season, I think.
I don't know. He always we know with Merritt he finishes strong, so he's probably just going to do this rate for the rest of the season. Unfortunately for non-owners, we're just going to have to pay up to get him. He's going to be one of those guys that you wish fell below 600, but you end up paying 620k for. Merritt's just going to be in that basket, and he's looking good for a 120 average.
One of our last kind of upgrades potentially once he finishes his buy.
Yep.
So I guess, kind of summarising, I'd say Nick Dacos, Luke Ryan and Nick Martin are good purchases if you want a defender. Bont, Sarong are good purchases if you want a mid. You could consider Petrarca, but it's kind of only if you believe in him.
And I'm getting Butters.
Yeah, well, Butters 148 break even. The data says maybe not, but also he's playing the easiest midfield to score against, so maybe he just hits that.
Yep, without Rosie.
Tim English, if you want to ruck, he's just go get him.
Absolutely.
And then Sam Flanders, I think is still okay value if you want a forward. Not he's kind of doing what he is. You could get him. Dane Zorko is an option if you want a forward. Probably to, like we said, the guys like Moore and Rankin and whatnot will just fluctuate, so don't worry.
It's not a great week to get a forward again. You got to really pick your timings for them.
Yeah, you got in when Rankin was low. I got in when Dylan Moore was low. Kind of just picked that timing, but just happened to work. There's a couple of guys that I'll say are on the buy soon, just to put on your radar. Dan Houston has a really low break even. He'll come down and, so get your stars aligned to get him. Zach Butters I've got in the buy soon category, but you're just going to buy now. That's fine. Matt Rowe's in the buy soon because he put out a low one, got a 159 break even, so he should drop. They're kind of my main ones at the moment. I've got a few, I'm talking about Heaney, Tom Green, that you probably just wait till after their buy to purchase. So, Houston, Butters and Rowe, if you don't own them, they'll be dropping, hopefully, unless they do a Luke Ryan. So probably put them on your shopping list soon.
Yes, I think so. And we can all watch what happens with Rosie as well, because I wouldn't mind a buy-friendly 450-odd K Rosie if it gets to that.
Yeah, well, I've still got to work out if I'm holding him or trading him.
All right, awesome. So some podcast questions. I know we're running extremely long, 2 hours.
That's all right. We can whip through some of these.
Alrighty. You want me to throw to you?
Yeah.
All right.
So
using last book.
Boost.
Yeah,
that's meant to say.
Okay. No, that makes more sense. Using last boost to fix a mistake. Should I get rid of Tom Powell now for a cheaper guy like Clary, or hold a week and get a top of the line primo such as Merritt instead with the boost?
Oh, That one's really hard because
So hard.
A mistake like Tom Powell is going to go down in price. Like you did say, it won't be that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, the same issue I had with Tom Powell last week. If you trade him, like who's coming in on your field instead of him? You have to field a Garcia or a Jones or someone instead of him. That'd be a bit gross.
We did.
And that was kind of why I brought Dylan Moore in last week, because I could trust him on my field for Tom Powell.
Yeah, we did say don't forget Darcy Wilson has the good fixtures for 2 weeks. You can play him on field comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
I followed that, which was great. That worked well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, let's answer the question though. Should you use your last boost to get a cheaper guy like Clary, or wait and get like a big dog like Merritt? This Clary move has kind of been what you've been doing with like the Bailey Dales, I guess.
Yeah.
My gut feeling is wait for Merritt, like wait and get a proper big dog next week. But geez, I just don't want to hold Tom Powell.
Yeah. I really wish Clary's time on ground was going up, because I just don't think it's possible he can go 120 plus with this time on ground. Like no one's done that. So it's not going to happen. And I hate having to buy a player for the future. Like, yeah, okay, I'm going to buy him, but then I'm going to have to stash him at M8 for multiple weeks until he gets good, just because he's this price. And especially for this person, right? If they're not getting Clary this week and Clary puts out a 120 or whatever against Carlton and becomes a demanding trade in, now you're just boosting to get Clary next week. It's the exact same trade, but you've lost money. You're not going to get zeroed, are you?
Yeah, because you're losing money on Clary and you're losing money on Power. Maybe I'll just do it now.
But then what happens if you're boosting a mistake into another mistake?
Yeah. Is Clary a mistake?
I'm not sure. I mean, I do think it's very low risk if you can. It depends on everyone's team. I feel like I'm going to be able to push someone to M9 because of some of the players I've got cheaper. And if that's likely a Clary Rosie rotation, then that's what it will be. And I'm happy with that. So I feel like I can take the risk if I want to. But I understand not everyone's in that position. So if you feel like your cash gen is not going to let you do that, then I'd probably wait a week to make sure you're feeling confident on Clary.
Yeah, I think I am. No, I've still got to make up my mind, but I think I am buying Clary this week, so I've got a bit of confidence in him, but is it like false confidence from previous years as well?
Well, let's just talk about McKercher again and see if we can change that. No, I'm kidding. Next question I've got here is, should we look to trade Harley Reid?
This one's interesting because if he has another poor game, that giant score's coming out of his rolling and he'll have a pretty big break even. So I wouldn't trade him this week because we were talking about him last week and other people have as well, that he generally could be a keeper. Like he could be averaging 90 and doing enough to be your F6. So I still want to give him a chance for that. I'll be honest, I haven't even considered trading Harley Reid. Like I think he's going to be one of my last upgrades because I think he has the potential to go 90s and I want to give him that chance to stay in my team. But if he has another like injury-ish managed poor stinker and then he has like 100 break even next week, it might force our hands.
Yeah, look, he's going to get to 4. Well, he might not because of depending how he scores this week, but he's going to get to like 450-ish. That's a very generous price for a rookie. I mean, I do like being able to loophole him because if he's going to have that high ceiling, that's quite good. It really just depends what it gets you and, you know, who's bottoming out next week.
You might be able to downgrade Harley Reid to Charlie Curnow or Shai Bolton. Yeah,
I mean, he's 2 weeks away. I've looked into this. Yeah. I don't want to buy him. I don't want to buy him into Swans at the SCG. I feel like that's not for me. Well, McCartan might be out, concussion still, maybe. But look, it's not ideal. But it's something I'll consider. I just feel like it's pretty rare. I mean, look, I'm in two minds, right? Because one, you're taking a forward off your field, so you want to replace him with a forward. And then the other mind is it's pretty rare for a rookie to even get up to like 450. And when you do, you feel like you want to go all the way to a 600K player because it makes it so much more difficult when they're only topping out at like 270, 280. And you're like, this is going to take me ages to build up the cash to get a 600K guy. So a lot of the times when you get one of them going to 450, you're like, okay, I'll use this opportunity to one up, one down to a 600K dude and just get it out the way. Like a Zerrett or whoever, or a Dunkley. But we'll have to just see how we go, because if Reed puts out 100 against Collingwood, I don't think anyone's trading him, right? So this is a question for next week's podcast.
Yeah, I agree.
Alrighty, well, I think that covers all of the hard-hitting questions, unless you've got a final one, and then we can go say hello to our loved ones after more than 2 hours.
I just want to check we've properly covered this question, which is kind of getting in, like, people upgrading the value, what they're calling value this week. So the Clarys, Petrakas, Stewarts, or spending up for the Ryans or Merritts of the world. Do you think we've covered that off enough? I think we've kind of lent towards pay up and go big, which is not normally our advice. Yeah,
look, it's only because I feel like track is a bit mediocre this season, and Stewart is giving me the same sort of vibes. Clary feels like lots of proper value, but also feels like it's this week or next week. Whereas Ryan, you kind of have to act right now, coming off a 197. You're forced into it, and Zerrett. I don't think Zerrett is a desperate trade in this week, actually. I think if next week, if Clary's going 105 and Zerrett puts out a 120, I'm probably still getting Clary at the value next week, and then I'm definitely taking the value versus spending up. It's just circumstance on some of the other guys, but it's so much depends on your team.
620 at one stage later as well.
Yeah, he's definitely gonna hover. Because he'll hover in this region, but it's just overwhelmingly team dependent, and it's not just like how many premiums do you have versus what you should do. It's also like how many trades you have, how much cash gen, which rookies do you have. Like if you don't have some of these high scoring rookies like Darcy Wilson on your field, or the Gold Coast dudes. It feels a lot worse when who did you say you were loopholing? Garcia and Darcy Jones or something?
Yeah.
Like that feels a lot worse. So it's all of these things need to be taken into account when you're making your trades to maximize your point potential. I see a lot of people culling rookies, like for example, Darcy Wilson, and leaving them, just to pay up to get a 600K dude when they could have got a 550K dude but kept Darcy Wilson, and now you don't have, you're playing somebody who's getting you 40 on field instead of a rookie. I mean, 126 is ridiculous, but a rookie that realistically against North Melbourne and Hawthorn we're expecting 80s or so. And the combination, that's a lot of points. If you lose 40 points in 1 week from a rookie decision, that is... it's not obvious, but it's the likely answer. 40 points per week over, the next 20 weeks is at least 2-3 points per game, which might be, enough value to turn that 550K guy into, a 580K guy or whatever it is, depending on the score. I mean, I've complicated it with maths, but there's many different factors at play. Let's put it that way. It's not just as straightforward as I'm just going to buy the most expensive guys and sacrifice all of my rookies all the time, because you have to play other people on your field.
Yeah, that is a wrinkle in it. I think just in a vacuum, this week is an okay week to pay up for the big guys, but that's only because we don't trust the kind of 560 and under guys this week.
Yep.
Second last question. This one's just more for me because Michael, I think he's a bit of a sicko, but he's wanted me to try and predict the top 8 forwards.
Which no way.
I think that's just an absolute crap show. But I'll have a little crack. What I got at the moment, I think Heaney and Flanders are pretty comfortably 1 and 2. Yep. I've got Zorko at 3 at the moment if he's staying that half back role.
Yep.
I've still got Jack McRae at 4 because I still believe in him, but that could wane quite quickly.
Yeah, I think I've lost faith, but I can see where you're going from with that ceiling.
Harry Mackay, I think, could be around that top 6 mark, especially after his bye when their run really gets nice. I wouldn't be purchasing him now. Dylan Moore, I've got in the top 6. I'm pretty confident that he's just like he did it last year. He didn't do it at the start of the year because he started with glandular fever, but I think he's just like a really good talent. And then I'll just round it out with Charlie Curnow and Isaac Rankin with no real confidence.
Fair enough. I think the only one probably debatable is Bolton sneaking in there, but I think those guys...
I did have him last week, so him and Rankin are pretty interchangeable for me, I think.
Yeah, I think those guys... I mean, I've probably got McRae in that interchangeable range, but I would second your lot of 9.
Yeah, and there could even be more.
Absolutely.
Like Jeremy Cameron could even go on a run, who knows?
It's hard predicting from this point onwards on the season as well, ignoring all of the previous points being scored. Could be Zach Fisher.
Yeah.
Imagine Zach Fisher finishes top 6 forward.
After we all started him thinking he might, and then he went off.
That's never happened before.
All right. Last question.
Oh, God. Okay.
In the spirit of May the 4th weekend, can you rank the 3 Star Wars trilogies?
Yes. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. And that's probably the end of the podcast. What a way question to finish. Thanks everybody for joining us and staying with us. This feels like a pivotal week, so we want to make sure we answered all of the questions. It's a long podcast, so we do appreciate you spending the last 2 hours plus with us. If you have any more follow-up questions, don't forget you can find ourselves on Twitter. You can find Pig at Pig_DRSC, myself at Pistol_DRSC, JB at JB_DRSC, and Cheezo_DRSC for Cheezo with a Z. Thanks, everybody.